Hello, this is Demon Phoenix with another tip vid just for Dead Space 3 and how to get ahead a little in the early game. Dead Space 3 is quite different from Dead Space 1 and 2 in the fact that the necromorphs are a lot faster, and you have the weapon crafting system, which can be quite overwhelming if you're not used to it. There are a couple of early things to make sure you look out for in the game and can give you a little bit of an advantage, especially if you're playing on hard difficulties. For example, at the start of chapter 3 here, you can ignore going straight into the Roanoke, and you can go around the corner of the Roanoke and just go and get one of the weapon parts that is nominally supposed to be picked up in chapter 4. Watch out for that lurker there that just went past, as he will shoot at you as you go. Basically, you break one of the windows here and it gets you a weapon part called the Diffraction Taurus. The Diffraction Taurus is quite useful, as I'll show you a couple of the early game weapons that you can make, just to make chapters 3, 4 and a couple of the early parts a little more manageable. The main idea here is to pick up the Diffraction Taurus, and then once you've got it, head back into the Roanoke and carry on as normal. Shortly after you've done the first part of the Roanoke, you will get to the first bench, which is what I'll show you in a moment. You can get these extra boxes here for a little bit of extra stuff like a med pack or whatever you pick up, and that I just picked up there was the weapon part, the Diffraction Taurus, which was the little purple box just there. When you get to the first bench, you can use this with the Tesla core and the heavy standard frame that you pick up just on the way into the Roanoke, and you can make a weapon which is the force gun and the chain lightning gun. The chain lightning gun's good. If you don't want to get the Diffraction Taurus, you can just leave the Tesla core as the single thing in the upper tool, and that'll just make a line gun which is a little more powerful and a little slower to fire. They both work well. You can just ignore the little things that came up there because those are messages, because I've already finished some of the things on the game. If you're playing from scratch, these won't be there. If you have a Dead Space 2 save on your cloud or anything like that, then you can get the Planet Cracker, which is the plasma cutter I just picked up there. And this also gives you the luxury of decombining and disassembling the weapons that you start off with in chapter 1. Why this is important is because if you have the Planet Cracker, you can dismantle the first part of the regular plasma cutter, and that gives you an extra plasma core. The plasma core is what we use to make the force gun, and I'll show you why that's good later on in the video. So there I've just created the Tesla core with the Diffraction Taurus, and that's the chain lightning gun part of the weapon. Next I'll go and disassemble the plasma cutter, because you've already got the Planet Cracker one from having a Dead Space 2 save, and that is what gives you the plasma core to make the force gun. The force gun's good because it does virtually no damage, and dismantle that there, and that gives you the plasma core. The force gun's good because it does virtually no damage, but it's quite quick firing compared to the other Dead Space games, and it knocks things back, and with the necromorphs being so much faster, it's useful in that regard. So, when you've got your line gun or and your force gun combo, see there, chain lightning gun with force gun, this is what you can use just to make chapter 3 a little bit easier if you wish. Now the way that the chain lightning gun works is it does decent damage to a necromorph. You still have to aim for the limbs some of the time, but the force gun makes it easier by knocking them over first. And it also shoots lightning that branches off and hits other necromorphs, which stops them in their tracks a little bit, and where the direction the lightning goes also shows you where the other necros are, so if they're behind you, you can look out for them. It's quite useful. The next thing to look out for after this is there's a couple of things that you can also pick up, but this should serve pretty well for chapter 3. So next, when you've started chapter 4 a little later on, there is an achievement for hitting the box head, but the important thing is this gives you tungsten, which you don't actually get until later in the game most of the time. I only got 10 there because this is on impossible. The other thing you want to do is you can start the Brusilov co-op mission, and even if you don't go into the co-op mission with another partner, you can do this part of it, which is outside the actual Brusilov itself. If you kill this pod shooter, whatever they're called, I can't remember, you get a one-time drop of a parts box, and the parts box is one of the other sources of early tungsten in the game. Now the reason that doing these two things, the box head and getting the parts box, is important is because you then have enough tungsten to make a tungsten torque bar. Now they don't take particularly great amounts of scrap metal. You can just see here, this is where you get the parts box, just there. And when you put that into a bench, that will give you a little bit of resources, and some of that is the tungsten. Now this is the door that you want to use the tungsten torque bar on. This is in the first part of the Greeley. Just be careful because there is only one enemy, but it's a lurker. It comes out behind you and it can take you surprise if you're not looking for it. So like we say, we need the tungsten torque bar using those 2 tungsten pickups. And when you've done the next part of the greely, the power is restored, so you can use the bench. You'll notice that I have 370 tungsten, but that's only because I've done pure survival before. Normally, with 350 less, you would still have about 22 I would have had there, and this is on impossible. So it'll still be enough to use 20 tungsten to build the torque bar and get into the room. So after you get into the room, the weapon that I like to build is to use the telemetry spike, which you get in there. Now the telemetry spike's really good fun, and it makes a lot of good weapons. It makes the rivet gun on a compact, it makes the javelin gun by itself, but what you can do is here, because you already have the diffraction Taurus, is you can use it to make the chain gun, not the chain lightning gun, just the chain gun, 2 separate weapons. And this is what I used for most of my first run. So what you do is you pick up a +1 rate of fire and damage clip in the same room as the telemetry spike, and a really good +1 damage +1 clip circuit there. So what you do is you put the diffraction Taurus with the telemetry spike as one tool on your heavy frame, and you keep the other one as the force gun. The force gun knocks him on the backside, and then you can finish him off using the chain gun. And this is a really effective combination. It's good for everything. Using those circuits, it has high clip and it does reasonable damage once you've put those 2 damage upgrades on there. If you finish the rest of the greely mission, you can also get the electric charge, which is the first attachment you get in the game. That's actually good, and if you put that on there, it does a little bit of extra damage and a little bit of extra stun. So it's a really effective weapon, and because of the high clip, it's also quite good at making sure that you make good use of your universal ammo and you don't go through ammo too quickly. Thank you very much for watching. The next video that I'm going to be doing is going to be about the weapon arena, so please watch that if you like the other videos. Thank you.